We in here for episode 10. We got a special guest tonight, little Anaya, because Anaya wanted to get in on this conversation. And of course, we got Yana, and of course, Mila, the soon-to-be accountant now, not real estate student, soon-to-be accountant. How's everybody?
Good. How are you?
I'm all right. I'm in Vegas.
Shooting on location. We don't have no issues this week today, sis, huh?
Hey, the issue is that I'm in Vegas. Anyway. So what's the issue tonight? We're talking about discipline versus punishment. And this conversation came out of the conversation we had last week when we were talking about narcissistic parents who use physical discipline, I guess, to discipline their children. So we decided we were going to have a whole conversation about it because we was about to get into another hour. All right. So the question is, what is discipline versus punishment? They are different. Everybody thinks it's the same, but it's different. So punishment, everybody knows what punishment is. Punishment is the extreme version of discipline. Yeah. Right? Punishment is consequences, but it's to an extreme. Like punishment would be, I'm going to kill these kids. Punishment would be, I'm going to kill these kids. But punishment would be like the standing in the corner or the body up against the wall holding the books. That's punishment. I've never done it to you. I don't know why you're looking at me like that. Discipline is, firm but fair. Consequences, limits, boundaries. Doesn't involve physical activity. Doesn't involve any type of abuse. So, abuse is a whole other thing, but punishment can turn into abuse.
You didn't bring your definitions today? I want to know definitions.
What definition? You want the Webster's definition?
Yeah, I'm surprised you didn't bring your definitions today. I think that's the starter.
Because I already know about it. That's why I didn't have to do. But
her whole brain is Webster.
Hey, you want the real? I can look it up for you. I'm gonna do that right now. All right. So, what do y'all think about that? Before I get into the definition, what did you think it was before we even got started on this show? Because both of y'all said I don't know the difference. So, what did you think was the difference?
I thought they were. I didn't know the difference.
I swear to God.
I said, what's the difference between the two? I'm the one that said that. What's the difference?
Okay. So, according to the dictionary, discipline is the practice of training people to obey rules or a code of behavior using punishment to correct disobedience.
Got it.
Okay. That's what the dictionary says. Punishment. Oops. You ain't even saying nothing, child. Punishment is the infliction or imposition of a penalty as retribution for an offense. So those are the dictionary definitions. Punishment versus discipline. However, clinically, discipline does not involve punishment because it's not supposed to. Discipline doesn't involve physical. Discipline doesn't involve emotional abuse. Doesn't involve any of those things. So what do y'all think?
I think the same. I always thought that punishment was something physical and discipline was verbal. That's how I always looked at it.
But like it's the same?
No, it's like different. Because you could discipline your child by just simply talking to them, but punishment, that's like, ooh, like I'm gonna get a whooping, or I'm gonna have to do something that I don't want to do.
You're gonna get a whooping. So Bolo is joining.
Hi, Khalil.
Hey, Bolo. So we just went over the definitions of discipline versus punishment. Do you know a difference, or do you feel like there's a difference?
Yes. You gotta give me a second. I literally just hopped on this and tried to. All right, so let's run it back. Question:
What is the what do you think the difference is for discipline versus punishment? What do you feel like the difference? Do you feel like there's a difference? Do you feel like it's the same thing? Because you just missed the definitions because you was late. So
I feel like they are different. Discipline is more of best way I could describe is molding somebody in a way, but in a firm mold, it's very firm mold. And then punishment is if that person does something or that child does something, that's the punishment. You do something back, not back, but they have what's it called? I forgot what the word was, but there's actions and reactions for things,
okay.
That's a reaction to what they have done for they did something bad.
I like how you said mold. That was a good word to use.
Mm-hmm. Thank
mold
you.
and shape.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what, Yana? What do you think?
I didn't really know the difference between them because I didn't. I mean, I don't really think about it that way. So I didn't. I never have really thought about it. The difference between discipline and punishment, which is funny. So I that's why I didn't really know the difference. So this is it's interesting to talk about.
Okay. Well, y'all got a lot of punishment when you were younger.
Yeah.
Anaya, on the other hand, gets more discipline than punishment. So do any of y'all want to speak to that? Because you're familiar with Anaya's life.
No, that makes sense.
That's
if we're talking about it in these terms.
It's called growth within the parent. You saw how it affected your first three.
Yeah.
And then so you decided to make a change with your second three.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I stopped giving whoopings. Well, according to Akayla, it didn't stop. But I stopped giving whoopings probably when Akayla was like 3 or 4.
Alicia.
Maybe.
No.
No?
Even I know that.
You remember it differently? I don't remember it like that.
Oh, sorry, what?
You
3 or 4. I'm saying 3. Akayla was like 3 or 4.
You stopped giving whoopings when we lived in Sacramento.
No, you stopped giving whoopings. You started giving out bystanders.
Get over here.
We airing out the business.
It was when we was older. It was when she was older than 4.
I definitely
when y'all was teenagers.
Huh?
All of y'all just froze just now. But what? You definitely remember what?
Being whipped in Stonebridge.
That was not.
You pretended like you whooped Kalia and you whooped me and Michaela for something.
That did not happen.
You were hitting the bed frame.
It did happen.
Pretending
all,
like you were telling her to.
It was just you. First of all, it was just you. I didn't whoop Michaela.
I seen Michaela get whooped.
I thought they
not that day.
We both. You
whooped
both of us.
Some Mentos.
I don't remember what it was about, but you pretended to whip her and you whipped both of us.
What did you do?
I don't remember. I'm pretty sure it was nothing. You just assume.
I'm assuming. Okay. I don't remember what it was either. Okay, so that was what? 2008?
Before Nia was born.
9, 10?
No, she was just born.
Nia was born already.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was 2010. No, we was in Stonebridge. Yeah, 2010. 11?
Mm-hmm.
That time.
2010? Okay. So it's been 11 years.
We all taller than you now. That's why.
All right. So what do y'all think about that then? What do you think about parents who give whoopings as opposed to verbal discipline? What do y'all think about whoopings? Do you think it's still something people should do?
No. I don't think it's all that necessary, but to each its own. But I don't really think it's all that necessary because honestly, getting a whooping, I just figured out ways to do what I wanted to do without getting a whooping.
Period. But
like, it didn't stop me. It wasn't like, oh, I'm scared. Oh, I won't touch that again, or I won't do that again because I got whooped.
Period.
No, I'm gonna just figure out a smarter way to do it so I won't get whooped.
Okay.
I agree with Mila. I hella agree with that. And I also think that whoopings, I feel like that just creates resentment in a child too. Mm-hmm. And it's also like, as an adult, me, myself, I don't whip my son because I know that I have an anger problem. And I feel like if I'm upset with him and I start hitting him, I might be hitting him with massive force, or I might hit him harder than I, and then it's like, oh my God, I didn't mean to do that. So I have that fear. So that's why I don't whip my son of like going too far. So I feel like, yeah, we're definitely way stronger than children.
Than a child, definitely. Especially for men. I don't think that definitely men should not be whipping kids, period. Mm-hmm. That's just not.
Okay. Men should not whoop kids because of how strong they
are? Yes.
No. I don't think it's, I mean, if you don't know your own strength, then that's on you. I don't think, kids should be whooped, but at the same time, it shouldn't be classified to just one more than the other just because the person is stronger. Everybody has a limit to the strength that they have. And if you use all of that, especially when you're whipping a kid, that's just a personal problem.
True.
I personally think you shouldn't whoop kids anymore either.
I think you can scare them.
I'm scared.
I think you should you can scare them, not hit them. But once you're a kid,
real question: what would be the benefits? What would be the benefits of whooping a child? Really, honestly,
right?
Mental abuse.
Yes. Okay. Well, let me tell you why it was something that I did when y'all were younger. Because
that's all you knew.
Not just that, but because everybody who was criticizing my parenting would say to me, you need to beat them kids. You need to whoop them kids. You need to make sure that they don't do anything. You need to make sure they don't disrespect you. You need to make sure that X, Y, and Z. And the only way you're going to be able to do it is to whoop them. And anytime something happened, it was, you need to beat them kids. And if I wasn't beating them kids, then everybody else was like, well, what's wrong with you? Why you ain't, you scared or, had some type of criticism. And me back then, I didn't like people criticizing me. So I thought the thing to do was to beat them kids. But I now know that's not okay.
I mean, how the generation before you was raised, it makes sense. For sure.
Yeah.
It for sure makes sense.
It definitely does. Because they thought that was okay. Huh?
I said, what first ask questions last?
Pretty much.
What the hell do you think you were doing while I'm whooping you?
Pretty much.
I don't like parents hitting their child. I mean, with whoopings and spankings or whatever you want to call it. Also because it stems from slavery. That's how the slave masters would discipline their slaves, by whipping them. That's where it came from.
Yeah.
You're not gonna beat me like no slave. You better calm down. I ain't your slave.
Okay, so Anaya, from a child who's never been whooped in her life, what do you feel?
I feel that you just because physical discipline is basically physical abuse to your child, and I don't think that that's okay. You shouldn't do that. Just not a requirement.
She went to abuse. Okay, Naya. Go ahead.
And so yeah, you just shouldn't do it. But like Mommy said, she did it because people told her that she should beat the kids and stuff like that. But you shouldn't listen to what people say. It's not their kids. It's your kid. You should not have to listen to what people say about you like that. You should just like tune it out.
She said tune it out.
But also, I want to add to this as well. Especially a lot of young moms, a lot of moms, period, but a lot of younger moms look up to their elders to, help them out because this is something totally new. Like you don't know, you were just thrown this. Now you got this football in your hand. And you're just like, dang, like I don't know how to play this out no more.
Yeah,
I don't know what to do. But
Right.
I also don't agree with other people, other family members or teachers disciplining, putting their hands on other people's kids as well. I don't agree with that at all.
Well, that whole idea came from the village, right? It takes a village to raise a kid. But back in like I want to say 70s, it was commonplace for you to allow other people to whoop your children. 70s and 80s.
Okay.
Like aunties could discipline your children, or grandmas could discipline your children, because that was just a thing that people did. But still ain't right.
No.
That's even more traumatizing when somebody else who isn't your parent is whooping you. That's even more traumatizing.
So
yeah, it is.
So are we agreeing? So whoopings. What are some other forms of punishment that you feel like people do that are still just as like detrimental? Because I feel like whoopings aren't the only thing that people will do.
Standing in the corner.
Some people torture their kids. I remember I was in school and some girl was talking about a story about how when her parents, when she would like get bad grades or something like that or do something wrong, they would have her pour out some rice on the floor and have her kneel in it.
Yeah. Rice, peas. People do that with frozen peas.
Or telling them, pack their stuff and get out the house. Making them walk down the block.
That's one. That's one.
Is it? Is that
one? That's knowing they don't got nothing, nowhere else to go, making them leave.
And then they grab you so much to walk out the door. Where the hell are you going?
You want to get the hell out? Shit. Okay, what else? Well, I said standing in the corner. People do the standing in the corner for hours, not letting the kids get out. The timeout, sitting in the timeout chair all day.
I think some people just be lazy with that. That's just something to make somebody do. Like the corner too. A lot of time, I think parents just forget, because usually a kid not going to just stand in the corner like that. They're going to move eventually.
You can't forget that your child is standing in the corner.
Yeah, if you neglectful. Yes, you can.
Your kid just quiet all day. You like, damn, I didn't remember you was standing there. Get out the corner.
How you just forget? Okay.
That's horrible.
I mean, if they're in the other room, because there's been times where I had to, sit out in the other room, and I was just like, dang, like, does she remember I was in here? Like, I've been here for a minute.
I mean,
that's horrible.
You can't forget.
Okay, so what would you like say the time limit would be for for a child having to stand in the corner or otherwise?
The standard practice now is age per minute. So for every year that's how many minutes they sit in the timeout chair.
There's a practice. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so if they're 8, they sit in there for 8 minutes. If they're 5, they sit for 5 minutes.
Unpopular. I feel like I think the timeout thing could be a thing. I'm not a fan of the timeout chair. I'm a fan of like go to your room. You know what I mean? And take a timeout. Because I feel like that's a little bit maybe nice. I don't know. I feel like that's like we need a break from each other. I can't do it. Go in your room.
That's separation.
Go your space.
Okay. But how long do they stay in there?
I mean, until you come out and ask me for some food. I don't really give them. Is that bad? Like, not that I'm like staying there all day. I feel like if I don't say that in the beginning, granted, he won't. He never does. But I mean, it's just like go in your room right now.
But here's the thing, like my mama used to believe in restriction. She didn't believe in she didn't whoop us a lot. She only whooped us like if it was really, really bad. But she used to restrict us to our room a lot. And that's what she would call restriction. So we wouldn't be able to go outside. We wouldn't be able to watch TV, but I had a TV in my room and I was always crying to come outside. And I was like, when I figured that out, I was like, okay, I'm going to go in my room. Shoot, I don't care. But that's what she would do because she knew that we like to go outside and we like to be with other kids. And so taking it away from us I guess was supposed to make us better,
Mm.
but somebody
I'm not a
was
fan of
sneaking
that
out the
either.
window. Okay, so it didn't change. You know, like you said, like both of y'all said, it just made it to where they were doing. He was doing. He was. I wasn't. I was not bad.
Right.
You were just good at tissue.
I was not. I was not a bad kid. No. To where my counterpart was sneaking out of the windows and making sure that we was not doing nothing like 5 minutes before mama came home type of stuff.
Yeah.
Like he would be like down the street around the corner probably. And then he would come home like 5 minutes before he knew she was supposed to be home. But sometimes
Sounds about right.
sometimes he would get caught. But
Sounds
we
about
spent
right.
a lot of time at home by ourselves. It was just the two of us. So we was doing a lot of stuff that she didn't know about. And I was thinking about that. Like we would be out on the carport at 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning in the summertime.
On the what?
7 and 8 years old. Outside on top of the carport, looking at the stars at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Oh my god.
That was our childhood. Like we spent a whole lot of time on our own. We had a heavy imagination. We had to figure it out. But she didn't have the time or the energy to discipline us. It would be restriction. Go to your room and stay in your room all day.
Yeah.
But you know, sometimes you get whoopings like when you burned your bed up or whatever.
I
think another punishment that I used to have to do, my mom used to make me write standard, and then she would also make me do projects like during my break. So like it was spring break, she would have me do like a book report, and I hated that.
I think that type of stuff like helps your child develop,
It does.
certain
It
skills.
does.
But that along with, staying in your room, it helps you, imagine different things, be more creative. You gotta find something to do other than if you don't got a TV. You
Yeah.
gotta
Yeah.
find something to make something to, keep you interested in.
Standards helps you with your penmanship.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
does.
True.
What you also
I feel like, okay, me as a parent, I'm at the crossroads of like, not why is discipline needed, because I know it's needed, but in the way that we traditionally discipline kids, is there another way to go about it to where they can still, or is there even really a need for them to just always follow the rules if they're not doing nothing dangerous? Do you know what I mean? Like if you're not doing nothing that's necessarily putting yourself in danger, why do I need to discipline you to necessarily follow this rule? Well, that's kind of where I'm personally at with it right now. My own like parental, exploration of like, what the hell? Like what you like why do I necessarily want him to follow these rules just because these are rules that I followed? Like with school, for example, like me and Elijah, he doesn't get in trouble. He didn't get in trouble on distance learning for not completing like certain assignments because I feel like distance learning was hard for him as it was. You know what I mean? But I was struggling with that because of what I already know of like, no, you need to go to school and you need to do this and this is what you need to do. So I was struggling with like that, and then like, why am I doing this? Like, why am I trying to force him to? It's a hard time right now. Why am I getting mad because he's not, doing his assignments or turning in his assignments? He's obviously having a hard time. You know what I mean? So, that's kind of where I be feeling. Where maybe a lot of parents feel like that, but it's I think it's confusing. Like, so what do y'all think? Do y'all think that what do y'all think is needed for discipline other than in emergency situations or dangerous situations that kids could be in?
Well, here's the problem that most people who don't look like us might not have to deal with. Part of the problem is that our kids get the most punitive punishment in school.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to school, I think most of that is because if you don't go to school, the police are knocking at your door the next day, right? So how else do you control your child in a way to make them do school other than punish them for not doing school, right? I think that's the idea that most people have is like, how do I deal with this system that is saying, this is what you need to do with your kid. And then I have to deal with this kid who's having a hard time and can't do it. Like, how am I supposed to deal with that? Because I don't want these people coming to my door. But at the same time, I do have empathy for this. But the only way these people ain't going to come to my door is if you get your butt to school.
Or you do what other parents do. Well, now it's different. I feel like what you're talking about, I get that. Because it wasn't always, I mean, now there's alternatives, but it wasn't always alternatives for people.
They're still doing that. They're still doing that. They're doing that with Zoom. They've been doing that with Zoom this past year, too. They're still doing that. So I think that that's part of the reason why, you know, it's so difficult for a lot of parents to not have to make them go to school or not try to make them go to school. You got something to say, Bolo?
I don't know. I think it should be a choice no matter what, you know, if you want to go to school. But often, like you said, because of the system you live in, you can't. But I think homeschooling is a good thing.
Oh, you do?
Yes. Not for the child necessarily, because it's very boring. But it or not even just homeschooling, like like you're saying, the alternative or independent study school. That it'll help a child with being around people, but that also academically. You know, it's a lot better than having to go and stay around the same type of people all the time.
So you liked that school when you were going?
I liked it because it wasn't so demanding. You know, it was a lot of work just because I had to do multiple years. But if it was, you know, just one, I'm pretty sure it would have been a lot easier for me, a lot more chill, you know. But at the same time, as far as, you know, interacting with people, you still get that, but it's not too much to where you got to focus on so many different personalities and doing all this different classes and different teachers and a whole bunch of stuff. Yeah,
so that's the thing. Like, how do you, and it's not just with school, but with everything. How do you, as a parent, as a Black parent that's dealing with a system that is trying to control you, not try to control the people that are up underneath you? Because one of the things I had to deal with Youngin over here was he would be destructive and I would have to end up paying for it. So a lot of people have that type of dynamic, especially with boys, where boys do things and people want you to pay for it. People want you to dish out money because your son just, or your daughter just destroyed this property. So how do you, in essence, say, you know what, I'm gonna just let you do what you want to do, but now everything that you've done, now I got to put out money for it? People ain't gonna do that. They're gonna try to figure out how to keep you in the house. They're gonna try to figure out how to make sure that you're not doing these things outside so that they don't have to deal with that. And that's part of where that comes from, I think.
I think it
you
matters about I think it matters about the type of people that you deal with in those type of situations. Like for me, I think I would try to talk my way out of trying to pay for something more into trying to get the kid to repair the damage that he or she did. You know, in whatever type of way, if I could. You know, maybe, you know, people lying about rocks and cars is a different thing, but
but I kind of agree. I kind of get what he's saying. I kind of get what he's saying.
That was a lie. She lied.
But
so, but like, there's ways to repair everything. You know, you can learn.
So you mean like painting over graffiti type repair? That's what you're talking about?
Breaking the window, you know, doing whatever it takes manually.
How you gonna repair a window?
You figure it out. No, you don't. Not by themselves, but you let them see what goes into what you did and how you destroyed this, and this what has to happen in order for it to go back to what you usually see. You know, it's not just something just gonna appear. There's things that are behind the scenes. A lot of the times, people don't let their kids see, you know, them paying for a transaction that they did or something like that. So they do it again. Instead of punishing them for it, you let them see what they do.
Okay.
Yeah, I could agree with that. I see what I see what he means.
Y'all see it? The comment?
Yeah.
Go on, young man.
I have an unpopular, maybe unpopular opinion though.
What?
Even though it's all this stuff going on in the world, as a parent, I feel like you just kind of have to deal with what comes with it and learn how to deal with your own emotions. And I know that's hard, but I feel like the punishment and discipline thing is more of a control thing. Absolutely. And I feel like you said, we do it to try to not deal with other consequences. But I feel like maybe we should start teaching people, if you're not ready for what that comes with a kid, you don't need a kid. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Because that's gonna happen. And as many times as you like if we discipline a kid for something, I mean, it's always gonna stick with them. You know what I mean? They're gonna, whatever the situation happens, kids are always gonna see it from a perspective opposite than ours, I feel like, because they don't know the world from our point of view. So I feel like whatever we try to do that we feel like is good for them, it's not, because we only know it from what we are now, I feel like sometimes. So I feel like it's like we just kind of have to figure out how to navigate it as the people that are in this world longer, and figure out how to do it to where it won't necessarily affect them too much, but we still teach them something. So that's why I kind of agree with what Khalil was saying, like let them see behind the scenes aspect of like, well, man, I broke this car window, and instead of beating me, my dad took me to do this. We worked it out with this guy, and we got some such and such from our friend, and we went and we put this window together, and then that's like a memory. So I kind of agree with Khalil saying, you turn a bad situation into something that's a nice thing. Now he learned how to fix a window, and he spent some time with his dad. You know what I mean? So now he's like, that's just what I think.
Okay. Because I know some kids that'll take that and be like, I'm gonna go break another window, we're just gonna repair it.
Yeah, but I mean, you gotta talk to them too. But I just don't feel like punishment is the way. I feel like that's kind of controlling.
Like for example, if you have a 5-year-old who breaks windows because he's hitting rocks with a bat, right? So the solution to that would be, that's never happened.
I was laughing because I was literally thinking of
that happened, right? So 5-year-olds who hit windows of other people's apartments or other people's homes or other people's cars with bats, because that's just what they feel like they need to do, because they want to maybe get out some aggression or whatever the case may be. But the thing, no?
I know, I just got a quick question. So is he or is she hitting rocks with the bat, or is he just hitting, the bat is just hitting the window?
Rocks with the stick. It wasn't a bat, it was a stick.
Okay, either way, what you do is, you said bat too, so you know.
Yeah, it was a stick, but I'm just saying, I was using it as an example of children who do certain things like that.
I get that, but in response to that, instead of discipline, you show them what baseball is.
That's what I was going to say.
There's an appropriate place in order, for them to do what they're trying to do.
However, so what happens when the child who hit the bat, this rock with the bat, when you said, hey, let's get into baseball, and he said, nah, I don't want to do that. That looked boring. So what do you do then?
You figure out something else to channel his aggression into that he likes.
Yeah.
Even though he's too small for football.
No.
He likes big.
If you tell somebody they're too small for football, they don't think they're too small for football.
I mean, I'm just saying.
I am.
Okay, so what do you suggest as a person who may have or may not have been in that situation? What do you suggest?
Like I said, you introduce them to something. If there's things that are letting them know that, you know, their body shape or whatever it may be is not fit for the sport that they're playing, if they understand that what they were doing before in terms of letting their aggression out in a bad way wasn't right, and this is more constructive, they'll find something different. Like I found basketball, but it's not it's not really up to the kid at that moment to decide whether they're gonna do the bad or find the constructive. You gotta let them know what the constructive is first.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mila. Yep.
We got two comments. Carla says we have to use restorative justice to discipline our kids. Does everybody know what restorative justice is?
I kind of do, but what does she mean by that?
So I believe, and I don't want to put words in her mouth, but I believe just what we were talking about, like trying to reframe and figure out a different way to let them know either, that behavior is not acceptable or whatever it is, but not in a punitive way.
Mila said something that I want to highlight that was really important. She said we have to guide them. And I think that that's the thing that as parents, we don't always understand how to do. But like what Khalil was saying, if one thing doesn't work, you showing them another thing that might work. That's a part of us guiding them as a parent and not getting frustrated because, well, this one thing didn't work. I don't know what to do now. It's for us to find different options from what we know to help them become a person. So I think that was definitely important when Mila said guide, because I think that's something that we're supposed to do that parents feel like sometimes, I guess I don't even understand it sometimes. So I guess it's like but I feel like that's important. We need to guide them and show them.
And also having patience with the child, especially if they have disciplinary, issues or whatever. Because I was one of those kids.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I received a call. I don't know if that was me, but what happened?
That was a bunch of noise. What happened?
I don't know if that was me either.
Okay. Where did she go?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Where did you go? Okay.
I tell them that I was going to come the next week because this is good. So I'm staying here.
Okay. So wait, we got another comment from Anika that said bad behavior has to be dealt with.
Okay.
In what way?
Who says in what way? Bad?
Well, that's the thing. Who says it's bad? Because we have all of these rules, right? Like you were talking about earlier. We need to follow these rules, and we make up these rules for for what for life, right? And if they don't follow the rules of life, then they get punished. But what works most of the time is not necessarily making them conform to your life, but making your life conform to your children to where they don't have to do these things. Like the example I use all the time when I was talking about, our old boss. He was talking about how his 2-year-old nephew or grandson, I think, would come into his office and get into his sand tray all the time. And he was telling them, no, you can't get in there. No, you can't get in there. No, you can't get in there. But he's 2. He don't understand that. He just knows he sees sand. He sees it's a big pool of sand. He want to get in there. So he was like, well, I figured out that I had to move the tray to a higher level so that he couldn't get in it.
He's a child.
Instead of trying to make him, trying to punish him for what he was doing as a 2-year-old, he had to figure out how to change his environment to fit the child. But the problem with that is that a lot of parents are young when they're raising children. They don't know how to, like Yana said, deal with their own emotions, and they have issues with energy. They don't have the energy to do restorative discipline, or they don't have the energy to try to figure out another way to help the child.
I think that you can you just got to be consistent. You say things repetitively, but from the beginning, you don't just wait until they decide, hey, I'm gonna go play with this, and then start saying no. Since he was born and was able to see, no, don't touch that. You know that this is not what you're supposed to do.
Oh yeah,
and also being thorough. A lot of parents just say, stop, don't do that. You have to be thorough. Say, this is what happened if you did this, and that. This is why I don't want you to do that. This is why I'd rather you have, rather you have this or rather you do that. A lot of parents are not thorough at all. They don't explain. They don't have patience. That's why they shouldn't have kids.
That's the same thing.
Yes.
Talks to and explains why actions were not appropriate, and if the kid continues, then it'll be dealt with.
Yeah. I got another thing that I want to add. Also, another thing that we don't talk about is positive reinforcement. If you positively reinforce a child when they do positive actions, and you pay attention to them when they do positive stuff rather than just writing it off as like, oh, well, that's what you're supposed to do. I think that sometimes that helps. It might not help for every child, but I do feel like, me personally, I think a lot of times kids act out because they want attention. And that's when their parents put attention into them. And that's when their parents are like going and doing the most for them. But if you gave them positive reinforcement, don't you think that they would act positively more of the time rather than negatively? You know what I mean? If you said, hey, you know what? Like we did for Leisha with school. Like, you know, we're like, hey, it's your first day of school. You have a good job. You know what I mean? Like even stuff like that, or taking them to do something when they do something good, or even if you don't have to buy something, just saying good job, or telling them like, you know what, that was really cool that you did that. Thank you for doing that. Even if it's something that they were supposed to do. You know what I mean? Because I think when you acknowledge them for the good things, they start to see that that's important, not just when I do stuff that's bad or when I do something that my parents get upset about. You know what I mean? So I think positive reinforcement is definitely something that we don't practice a lot in our community necessarily. So I think that's something that we need to start looking at too, rather than just punishment or discipline.
Yeah. I think part of the problem is that and what Carla said, we try to raise our kids the same as when we were raised. So we have the same rules that apply for 2021 that applied maybe in 1991, right? You have the same rules for life, and that shouldn't necessarily be, you should tailor your world now to your children. Like we were having the debate about the cell phone, 6-year-olds with cell phones. A lot of Black people think that that's not okay, right? But these children grew up on technology. They don't know anything outside of technology. Now in 2021, a 6-year-old with a cell phone is not abnormal. It's just not. Because 2-year-olds know how to use cell phones. Because that's what they grew up on. But most people would be like, oh, no, that's too much. That's, taking away their innocence, like with the conversation about the genitals, right? You're taking away children's innocence if you make them do too many adult things and not, when they're children.
Yeah.
Having a cell phone for kids who grew up on technology, who are tracing their letters on the iPad, is not adult behavior. That's what children are doing now. No, you don't agree, Bolo?
I think it's just for now, it's just the fact that there's so many different ways that the children can access adult things on their own without having to have an adult introduce them to those types of things. Especially with the way the internet and stuff is on social media.
That's always been a problem.
True. I think if you have open communication with your child, though, and you talk to them, I don't feel like that should be, a problem. I mean, I know kids are sneaky, but do we really? I don't know. I think maybe I'm gonna ask you this. I feel like we don't always know everything that kids are doing, but do y'all feel like we need to?
Yes.
As a
why
like everything that our kids all the time.
It depends on.
To know what they're doing.
It depends on what age they are. Just because you want to, okay, so it's not that you have to know what they're doing and necessarily take action on it, but you have to know what they're doing just to make sure that you can, see the path that they're going on, so you can take, action in the future, or you can be prepared to let them know that what they're doing could cause this to happen, or vice versa. I think that is.
Are you hearing that noise?
Yeah, it's been doing that. But I think it's important to be aware of what your child is engaging in at all times, especially as they're growing up. I don't hear it no more.
I think it was Leah. She muted her. Okay. What'd you say now?
I said that I think it's important to be aware of what your child is engaged in, especially when they're under the age of 13. Because kids, they keep tapping on things, and then all of a sudden they're into something in a whole different universe.
Well, so okay, let's talk about. Well, okay, I don't know how you're gonna feel about. Let's talk about the porn situation, right? Most kids watch porn before the age of 10. right? That's a thing. It is not, and this is not just a thing that just happened with technology, because we used to have VHS tapes
and magazines.
Okay.
They used to sell the magazines in the liquor store.
That's something that kids do, because kids at a certain age, especially between like the ages of 3 and 10, are sexually curious. They want to know about sex, and there's not a lot of conversation because of the whole idea of nigga said stop telling our age. Because of the whole idea of if you tell kids about certain things before their time, or before they're mature enough to understand it, that you're going to expose them to something that's adult. You're already being exposed to that when you're watching porn, right? But if you're not having what?
Keep going.
If you're not having a conversation with them to tell them, listen, this is not regular sex. This is not what sex is going to be like for you. This is something that is sensationalized, that is scripted, that people get paid for, right? Because of the fact that you're sexually interested, have a conversation about sex, what sex means, and whatever age that is that they're watching porn. Not wait until they're 15 or 16 to do it.
Yeah,
I think that
they're already above and beyond in their hormones.
Yeah, when they're already having sex, probably, and they're just not telling you because you're not having these conversations with them. What?
Kids be scared to have conversations with their parents about stuff like that.
But I feel like if you're open with them at the beginning, I think it kind of leaves a little bit more leverage.
Yeah.
Because then it's kind of like, okay, well, my mom's trying to talk, or whoever, my mom, my parents trying to talk to me about it, so But a lot of parents, believe it or not, a lot of parents are afraid to have that conversation with their kids.
Yeah.
They rather have either it's the man, they rather have the woman talk about it, or like the grandmother, or like the auntie, or something like that. A lot of parents aren't just comfortable with it.
Yeah, they think it's a specific time when you should have the birds and the bees conversation. Yeah. Most people think that it's not until puberty, huh? The birds and the bees.
I was gonna say, yeah, I was gonna piggyback off of what Mila said about some parents aren't comfortable having that conversation with their kids. They are, but I was gonna say something about that too. I was gonna say sometimes it's easier for them to listen to other people too, or to talk to other people. So I definitely feel like as parents, sometimes it's easier for kids to talk to another person about something rather than their parents. So maybe if the parents have open communication with the other adults. Go ahead. What are you gonna say?
It's conflicting because it's like, okay, you want me to talk to this person about this, but then you want me to tell you everything. Like, now I'm not going to tell you anything because now I'm confining into someone else. Now I don't even feel comfortable with telling you about anything anymore.
Well, for me, I don't think it's conflicting. I mean, but I see what you mean. I don't think it's conflicting because I feel like for me personally, and a lot of people, you hear stuff from your parents that you might hear from somebody else that might be different. I feel like we were talking about, it takes a community to raise a child. I feel like if my son was to tell my mom about like him having sex before me, I wouldn't feel like bad about it. And I would talk to him about it and, open up conversation. And I would be like, hey, well, your BB told me this, and do you want to talk about it? Or maybe it's a reason why he didn't feel comfortable talking to me about it. But I feel like talking to somebody about it, that's an older person. It doesn't necessarily have to be me. That's just what I feel like. Because I feel like sometimes you're not, like you said, you're not always that comfortable with your parents. But I feel like any adult around you, if you have a support system, like even if my son was to go to you or like Khalil, I wouldn't feel no type of way about that because y'all would tell me. You know what I mean? And I would know still. So that's how I feel like I think sometimes that helps.
Well, Carla said that exposure and having that conversation protects them from abuse. What do y'all think about that?
Yeah.
Really? You believe that?
Not protects, but I think it makes you more aware. I don't think it can protect them necessarily completely, but they can't be like manipulated and not know what they're doing.
You can't protect anyone from anything because it will, in my opinion, if something is supposed to happen, then it will.
Mute your mic. Okay, go.
Dang. If something is supposed to happen, then it will. Whether no matter what age you are, so you can't necessarily protect them from anything. You can make your child aware of things that could happen. You can give them tools and steps to being prepared, but at the same time, that can also lead into you taking their like you said, you taking their innocence away because you're preparing them for stuff that could possibly happen, in the future. You don't think about it happening right now, but that is for some people, a thought at the front of their head. It could happen tomorrow, so you got to prepare them, or you got to protect them in a way. But I don't know.
But you can't.
I don't think so. No.
What is that? Okay. Well, me and Anaya just had this conversation a few days ago, right, Anaya? What did you think about the conversation?
It was it really helped a lot. Now I understand, like the stuff that I was doing. It was very dangerous, and something bad could have happened if I kept doing it. And
I wasn't talking about that conversation.
but
I was talking about the when we were talking about the guys asking you to come over to the house conversation.
Oh.
I just exposed all her business. Okay.
I felt like he was pressuring me into going to his house, and it made me feel uncomfortable.
Who?
And
this was a year ago, maybe.
What?
What you just heard? A year ago, some little boy, a little 12-year-old boy, kept asking Naya to go to his house after school.
Why?
Why do you think? What else would he want her to go there for?
Where's the little boy parents at?
I don't know. I don't know. But we had a conversation about it, about how she doesn't have to be or feel pressured to do those types of things.
No. Not at all. No, I mean, you don't. Like, it don't matter what nobody say. If you're not ready to do something, then don't.
Where did Mila go? Okay.
I don't know.
So, having these conversations with teenagers, do you feel like they're beneficial?
Yes.
I do. I do. You know what else is beneficial?
What?
Having other adults for your kids to be around and for them to look up to. I feel like having other mentors and not putting necessarily that whole strain on yourself as a parent too. Not saying they got to be a parent, but you know what I mean. Having other people around them.
Okay.
Well, positive, of course. They can't just be the hood niggas.
Oh, here it is.
The hood.
What?
I said they gotta be positive, of course. They can't just be the hood niggas.
They can't be doing what?
Hood niggas.
Hood niggas?
Well, they can if they positive.
Who's a hood nigga?
Positive. No, nobody. It was a joke, but it's late. I was just saying I feel like having positive other influences around your kids will help too.
No. Okay, hold on. My computer might be done.
We have technical difficulties all this show.
Yes.
Very much so.
I don't want it to stop because the computer's cut off. That would be stupid.
I thought it was off.
We would still be here, Khalil.
You thought it was off?
Yeah, you froze for a minute. I was like, oh.
That's it. That's the end. Okay. So what'd you say? I didn't hear what you said because I was looking for my charger.
I was saying, yeah, having conversations with the kids, but I was saying also having positive role models, other people other than yourself around them, or other than a parent.
What if they don't have that though?
I mean, they can.
That means that the.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just gonna say that just means that the parent is a loner, or that the parent is the same way as the negative influences that they have around.
Yeah. What if they don't have any positive people? What if they're not positive people? What if they are hood niggas? What if they are people who, who believe that this is the way of life and they have to teach their children to live this way because this world is dangerous and it's hard?
There's always going to be a time where that child ends up thinking for themselves, and if they don't make that decision, then they just continue the cycle that they've been in. A lot of them end up blaming, the generations simply because they don't switch they don't change.
Yeah. Anika said we got churches and we have sports.
Facts. I think what Khalil just said was so good because I think one thing we have to remember as parents is this is not our life. This is theirs. And I think too that with the discipline and the punishment, when we are thinking of that, that's something that we have to remember. Every conversation that we have with them and every choice that they make, it don't necessarily reflect us as a parent. It reflects who they are becoming as a person. And that is not necessarily just about your parenting. That's about whatever it is that they're receiving. And I think that's important for us to remember so that way we don't necessarily try to punish out of them what we don't want to see or the bad, qualities that we don't want to see. Because at the end of the day, once they get to be an adult, even though we're still going to be there for them, it's their lives. You know what I mean? They're the ones that got to live it and deal with it. So think about that before you punish your kid.
I agree with that. I agree with that 100%. Like we were talking about earlier, that always comes out of your anger, your need to control, your need to, be in the top, be the top person. Your need to be the authority. That person needs to, or for your child to look at you like, being afraid or being scared of you. Because if they're scared, they're not going to do anything. If they're scared, they're not going to step outside of the line. What the hell?
But what they do don't necessarily reflect you as a parent. So remember that. Don't let outside people keep telling you that. All my parents that's watching, y'all keep doing y'all great job and keep raising them babies. All right. If you already raised them, I love y'all. That's all I got to say.
Okay. All right. Well, so the end of it is we should not discipline or punish our children. Is that what y'all feel?
Discipline is very necessary. It's just not. It doesn't need to be aggressive.
So non-aggressive discipline.
Don't abuse your kids, but figure out a discipline that works for you and yours. And don't necessarily follow somebody else's lead. Figure out your child and figure out what works for your child.
I think that's fair.
Yes.
That's fair.
I think, being as I did take, a psychology class, I kind of figured out that, everyone, brain kind of works the same. It's different lanes, so to speak, for, different groups of people, but they all work the same. You can use different speeches or different, what's it called? Different things to get people to interact with you, to get them to do what you want to do. A lot of people call it manipulation, but I think that's just what parenting is. You're, like I said, you're molding someone into doing what you think is the correct way of life, what you see as the correct thing. And once they grow up, they could change their mind and they're seeing something different. Like Kalia said, that doesn't necessarily reflect you, but that just comes with the different types of manipulation that they encounter from other people in their lives.
Yeah. So I agree with positive reinforcement. I agree. Well, I parenting, all the parenting books say, firm but fair, knowing, setting limits, knowing boundaries. But the real thing that needs to happen is structure. Like, kids thrive off of structure. If you know, like, and it was one of my clinical supervisors used to say all the time, if the kid knows every single time that bedtime is at 9:00, then they're going to feel more safe in their environment. But if their bedtime switches every other day, maybe not, because they don't know what's going to happen from one day to the next. If they are in situations where there's violence in the house, that's unpredictable and unstable. They're not going to feel safe in their environment, not just because it's violence in the house, but because nothing is stable. There's no structure. There's nothing for them to depend on. They can't say mama's going to be home at 3:00 every day, because mama sometimes come home at 3, sometimes she come home at 8. Mm-hmm. So there needs to be some type of structure. It doesn't have to be like, rule-based set structure, but there needs to be some type of safety involved. Because if they feel safe, they're not going to necessarily want to go out in the streets and do whatever, because they know they're safe at home.
Yeah. And to piggyback on that, give your kids outlets. Let them have their outlets so that they can use that to express themselves, whatever that may be. And if you can put them in sports, or if you can give them whatever, if you can do that. But YouTube is if you want to teach your kid how to do something, they want to play the piano, you better get you some YouTube lessons and make a playlist. You know what I mean? The world is wonderful these days. You know what I'm saying? But give your kids an outlet.
Unpopular opinion, and I know y'all gonna feel like I'm lying when I say this, but even marijuana is an outlet.
We could.
It is. I don't like you smoking it in my house, but it is. It is an outlet.
For y'all adult kids, guys.
Well, I mean, I don't know.
You can't be saying that on here, LMFT.
Why not? Because it's not a. I'm gonna just say this: to each his own. Everybody can do what they want. But what I have found to be true dealing with marijuana smokers is that the more you hound them, the more they're going to find a place to do it that's not safe, or they're going to find a not so safe way to do it. So the more you no, you need to stop smoking, that's not going to really help. So once you stop smoking, you can't do it certain places. That's fine. You can do it that's your house. You get to tell them wherever you can smoke outside. But the stop doing it is what makes them want to do it more. And a lot of people are medicating. A lot of people are self-medicating. They're doing it because there's something else going on. So maybe finding out what that something else is might help them to stop doing this much. That's how I feel now.
Yes, I see newfound perspective.
I don't know if I felt like that a long time ago. I was trying to control it at some point, but now I feel a little bit different.
One more thing. When people watch these types of podcasts and you watch shows on parenting and books, take it in, but like I said, use it in a way that works for you. Don't do it exactly the way somebody else is doing it just because somebody's telling you that. Because Mama, you said that was what you feel like was one of your biggest, reasons for why you did a lot of stuff wrong with us too, listening to other people. Stop listening to other people about your own children, parents. Stop listening to what everybody else is telling you about your child. Okay?
Yes.
Listen to yourself and your child. Stop listening to the teacher. Stop listening to your aunties. Stop listening to your daddy. Listen to you. Listen to you. Okay? And your child.
And every child is different. You have to discipline each child in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do it across the board, especially if you have more than one. You can't do across the board discipline. Every one of your children is different, have a different personality. You got to do different things with them. Yeah. So on one more comment before we go. Anika said, hell no. You smoke weed when you get your own place and got your own money. All right. On that note, we go in this. What do y'all think we want to do? Well, not y'all, because both. Yeah. Yana, what do you want to do for the next show? Mila gone. I don't know what happened to her.
Oh, Mila said the audio was messing up, so she had to.
All right.
I want to say, you guys are lucky you got to see my government name. It might be the only time, but on Instagram, go ahead and give me a follow, Bolo_4K. I got a few songs out. Me and my sister Yana here. Little R might come back, but no, for real though. I said Bolo_4K. Link in the description. I mean, not link in the description. Link in my bio to my songs on YouTube. So yeah, we'll run that up.
You want to give your info to Yana?
She said what I said.
Huh?
Y'all know where to find me.
All right. So on that note, we'll figure out what's going on for next week. I guess during the week, since we can come up with a topic this time. I think the weed smoking should be a topic.
I think it should too. I think we should talk about that.
You don't think so? Why? When the majority of people smoke weed. Majority of the people.
There's too many different opinions about it.
Well,
no one really knows the truth.
There's okay. All right, so that's what we'll talk about: marijuana and children. On the next episode of What's the Issue Sis? No, Bolo, you don't agree? Okay.
Bolo_. Okay. See you guys later.
I love y'all. See y'all later.